Hey space explorers, welcome to Astrox Radio, where we break down the most electrifying developments out there before your morning coffee even kicks in. Today's front page story is something you have to hear. China just nailed a critical test of its next generation crewed lunar capsule and rocket, a major step towards putting humans back on the moon and shaking up the space race in ways you don't want to miss. And later, we'll dig into a big move by the United States Space Force, which has been awarding a massive contract to a satellite service startup that's changing how military satellites get maintained in orbit. Plus, we'll unpack why aerospace and defense companies are still betting on the Golden Dome missile defense system, even as questions swirl about its scope and funding. Strap in, this is Astrox Radio, and we're launching into today's stories right after this. Let's start with how China just aced a test of their next-gen lunar capsule and rocket in an effort to land humans on the moon before NASA. The country is hoping the next boots on the lunar surface will be those of a taikonaut, not an astronaut. By the way, a taikonaut is a Chinese astronaut, if you didn't know. Let's first give you some foundational knowledge about this topic. This whole program is managed by the CNSA and CMSA, where China aims to land astronauts on the moon by 2030 using the Long March 10 rocket, Mengzhou spacecraft, and Lanyu lander. This state-funded program, backed by an estimated $14 to $19 billion annual budget, plans to establish the International Lunar Research Station at the lunar South Pole by 2035 in collaboration with Russia. On Wednesday, February 11th of their local time, the Chinese nation had conducted a low-altitude abort test of its next-gen Mengzhou, which is also known as Dream Vessel, capsule, which could carry crews to the moon as soon as 2030, as I said. The low-altitude abort test is basically where, if there's an emergency, astronauts could take the abort and get out of the range of the rocket just in case it explodes or some leak happens or any catastrophe. So they have to do these abort tests, and it had gone successfully. Mengzhou performed as designed during the test, which lifted off from the Wenchang space launch site on Hainan Island. The capsule successfully maneuvered itself away from its Long March 10 rocket and splashed down in the ocean under parachutes, showcasing capabilities that would be needed in the event of a launch emergency. The Long March 10 is a key piece of China's moon plans as well. It's a heavy lifter that will launch the nation's astronauts to Earth's nearest neighbor, which is the moon, and the rocket aced an important trial of its own on Wednesday. Let's get some technical specifications about the Long March 10 rocket. The structure. It's a 3-stage rocket with 2 strap-on boosters in standard configuration, featuring a 5-meter diameter core. The height and weight is approximately 92.5 meters tall with a liftoff mass of 2,189,000 kilograms. The payload capacities are the following: 70 tons to low Earth orbit and 27 tons to trans-lunar injection. The propulsion uses RP1, which is kerosene, and liquid oxygen, which is LOX, for the first 2 stages, with liquid hydrogen/liquid oxygen for the 3rd stage. Then there's the engines. It's powered by 7 120-ton class YF-100K engines on the 1st stage, which are also standard, with 2 YF-100M engines on the 2nd stage. So now with that technical foundational knowledge, we can continue. On Wednesday, the booster guided itself into a powered vertical splashdown in the ocean after Mengzhou went its separate way. The Long March 10 is still in development, and Wednesday's flight did not come close to reaching orbit, but the rocket's splashdown success was still a major milestone on the road to recovery and reuse. China has also made progress recently with its crewed lunar lander, a vehicle named Lanyu. As a result, many space experts give the nation a real chance of winning the crewed race back to the lunar surface. On the other hand, NASA aims to put boots on the moon in 2028 on the Artemis 3 mission, which will use a modified version of SpaceX's Starship vehicle as its lander. But it's unclear if the mission will be able to meet that timeline. A lot depends, for example on the success of Artemis 2, which is upcoming, a crewed trip around the moon that could launch as soon as next month. I made a podcast about this before, it's my last podcast, go check that out. Artemis 2 will employ NASA's Space Launch System rocket and Orion's capsule, but will not incorporate Starship. So we've seen Starship's progress so far. Not the best, but they've been doing small iterations or small successes every few flights. But 2028, to get a HLS Starship, so Human Landing System Starship, to land on the moon for Artemis 3 and be human rated is just a whole nother thing. Think about it. It's 2026 right now. 2 years, even 3 years. Do we think the Starship that we see today, in just 3 years, could be able to land humans on the moon? I don't think so. And China has set a better goal of 2030 and beyond. 2028 does not seem very realistic, seeing what Starship's have been doing so far. Now let's move on to the second topic of this episode. The Space Force awards $54.5 million contract to Starfish Space for GEO servicing vehicle. Starfish's Otter spacecraft will support relocation and life extension of military satellites. The contract was awarded on February 2nd, which covers the manufacturing and operation of an Otter servicing vehicle, the name of Starfish's spacecraft, for at least 5 years. Otter is a class of spacecraft known as space tugs, which are designed to move, reposition, or sustain other satellites once they are already in orbit. In military operations, these vehicles are intended to give commanders more flexibility of how satellites are operated and defended. Quoted, "The Otter vehicle will provide the United States Space Force with mobility solutions for relocation, including to disposal orbits and life extension services through station keeping for fuel-limited national security space assets in GEO," which a spokesperson for the Space Systems Command said in a statement to Space News on February 6th. So you may be wondering, is $54.5 million a lot just for something like this to a kind of small company? Well, I would say yes, it is a lot, but it's also a small company with a lot of potential. And $54 million would be most likely very needed to send the satellite all the way into GEO, which the cost per kilogram is getting lower and higher and is fluctuating around, which you'll need that amount of money to develop, test, do all the R&D stuff, and launch the vehicle, and sustain it in space. Let's get through some really quick foundational knowledge. Starfish Space is a satellite servicing startup founded in October 2019 by former Blue Origin engineers Austin Link, who's CEO of Starfish Space, and Trevor Bennett, who's CTO. Based in Tukwila, Washington, the company has raised over $53 million, as I said, to develop Otter, an autonomous space tug designed for satellite life extension and debris removal. It's backed by investors like Shield Capital and NFX, where Starfish holds major contracts with NASA, the United States Space Force, and Intelsat, with full-scale missions scheduled to begin this year. Another interesting thing about this is that full-scale missions coming this year, this quickly, they just got the contract in February 2nd. Would they be able to launch by December? We'll see. We'll see in the upcoming months their progress, if anyone gets to at least report on their progress. But if they can't, doesn't matter. We'll continue. According to a Pentagon contract announcement, the $54 million agreement covers the manufacturing of an Otter vehicle and includes 2 option years for operational support. While Otter is a commercial spacecraft, the version covered by this contract would be specifically for military use. So look, this Otter spacecraft will have multiple iterations and vehicles. So there will be some for just military use, like there will be this one for only military use. There will be some commercial use, like some companies who have satellites in any orbit and they want something to push them back into like a higher orbit to extend their lifespan. Or just put them into a deorbiting orbit so that the spacecraft can get out of orbit and avoid being space debris. Now we'll move on to our third topic of this episode, which is similar to the second topic. Space companies bet on Golden Dome as questions persist over scope and funding. As Smallsat Synopsium, executives cite enduring missile threat as rationale for continued investment. There's a lot of uncertainty about its scope, cost, and long-term political durability. First, let's get some foundational knowledge about what the Golden Dome is. The Golden Dome is a proposed multi-layered missile shield envisioned by Donald Trump to protect the United States from ballistic and hypersonic threats. led by General Michael Guillotin of the United States Space Force, where the project aims for initial capability by 2029, with a total estimated cost ranging from $175 billion to over $800 billion. While official contracts are pending, major aerospace firms like Lockheed Martin, SpaceX, and Anduril are key contenders for the project's space-based sensors and interceptors. So let's continue. At the small-sat Synopsium in Mountain View, California, industry analyst Chris Quilty raised questions about whether the program will endure or follow the path of past high-profile cancellations. Quoted, "We've all heard about $25 billion in the budget this year, and hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars depending upon how you size it," said Quilty, chief executive of consulting firm Quilty Space. He described Golden Dome as a budget crosswalk and an amalgamation of things, rather than an actual program. More than a year after President Donald Trump issued an executive order directing the Pentagon to pursue the effort, Quilty asked executives whether they viewed it as durable. Quoted, "Is this something that has staying power, or is it another Crusader program or Comanche that runs its course for several years and then just gets cancelled?" he said. Quilty was referring to the Crusader artillery system, the Comanche helicopter, which is two army modernization efforts from the 1990s and early 2000s that were cancelled after billions of dollars in spending amid concerns over cost growth and shifting priorities. I see Golden Dome as kind of stupid. Like, let satellites be in space. Don't start war in space. We just want science, exploration, and collaboration internationally in space. Maybe a bit of friendly competition, like a few space races to the moons, similar to how the United States and China are having it right now. But no conflict in space. That's not what we want. Well, that's it for today's episode of Astrox Radio. From lunar ambitions to satellite servicing and the future of missile defense, space isn't slowing down, and neither are we. Follow the show so you never miss a launch, and we will catch you on the next orbit. Until then, keep looking up. Thanks for listening.